fantastic. Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. Tanda dirwa sorry. Da tuyu maranzo mize narwa. Mize nala mise ade. Da chi samlo danda la chi. Manzo sama kasore be. Digi 21 segi. Ani chi gyu sore, jen sore, cho sore. Tendeji la taje ani Tindeji chena ne la digi ngudo serwa. Tindeji chena ngudo la kangi ngudo ne ngudo. Ta tindeji yawa cheje ne su ke samlu kanje su. Mezero shidu sikeje dodegi yore serwa.
So normally we think in the context of this life of accomplishing deki, this notion of well-being, and what are the causes and conditions or supports behind that well-being, and then accomplishing the well-being, or if that doesn't result, then suffering comes, and most of us progress through our life like that.
De su kasore. Samudana ra shirwa, todan ra shirwa pe. Da nangbe shune sheo na. Su lesa wa. 레스니 디 마사콘라 네 삼로단단지 도고요다 델레야지 꿀론단지 셰고 때조 손조 dumba dewe jis to sarwa tajida shidani to tajide yewa mango yordele zo nguse tuwa ni ro she shana ro zo shidani to salabshavi na kanda zo ji pena zambulingi nezu chesage ji magdu yo ya ro jega penju magdu yo ya ane tanda ngaranzo ji kuyu bazo shoni 미다 tundu simje mongboje neya 알아서 침 초과직나게 미 편지라 직직 neya 안 토고 토모 편지 직직 라마트 대야도 상마 mongboje 되게 제스도 와 시단지 제스도 와서는 도제로 시단세야데 초직라 초직라 다음에 심리 숙청부 쉬어질래로 아니 네 나와텔라 아니 매부서나 다음에 차도 매우서나 아니 나를 디기용 서래서로 당갈은 뇌에 차서로 딘데지 제도 말은 내용도 스테이지 디 매우서나 아니 나 안저 직소소 개가야고 차도 아니 총이나 지소소 그 총이 갑자기 매우서나 나야고 차도 이제 지 도모로지네 소소 뇌용이 메디 바 매우서나 소소지 도모로미 견로 통도 견데 매우서나 나야고 용서 타도나 지 시단지 제스도와디 수수 직대오야다 수수 디기오야 질 도제 아니 뇽라디 도스체니 중대기 문에서는 도다한테 대시 안한테 공개다 하고 그러와 산노다제 공개다니 세우 하고 용으로 했어 들어와
So that well-being also is a lot of your mental attitude, and from the perspective or the view of Buddha Dharma, it is karma, or these actions we create. But before accumulating karma, there is like an intention behind it, a motivation factor, if you will. But let's just say oftentimes we're motivated by desire or hatred, particularly in this world. There is a notion of aversion that a lot of people motivate. And in dependence on that, we see wars or we see harms with humans and animals in the environment, problems between communities or even friends. So there can be mostly because there are these notions of something gets in the way of your well-being, and that's fueled by hatred. So if the desires, attachment is strong, commensurately the aversion is strong. And it is a mind of aversion that wants to make something external no more, thinking that if only that other country doesn't succeed, our country will be happy, or if I get to profit in business, exclude other. And the same with friends. If only those friends were no more or their faults went away, then everything would be okay. A lot of this is coming from because we have these attitudes of kind of tending towards aversion, and we follow them. And this is something we can clearly see when we meditate and trace the source of our dissatisfactions.
다디네 이 데베지스로 와서들와 다디 만나서 슈무세 토시다야래와 맞아 디 공장다 세부하고 그러면서 직접봐 수수 맨날 다 되발라니 잡종디 수수 디기라라레데 요래와 수지 야고직다 주직다 지금 약 체류네 라진진지 잡로데 요르데레 딘딜라다 나 되바 딘데지 중나로 나 딘데지 중나 아니 다 기부 용서레스로 아니 맞다 숙제주 되는 로데 자자 굽지다오지 망부 굽주 고구스라오지 마자 되변나는 로제다 치 dewe mi rodan di mi mangoji ne chi tunje na chi tunje chuna ane di 기본 용사를 에스로 빼는 거랑도 지 고육 지 고육도 개점으로 와. 게 둥지도 차고 와라. 지 고육에 아니 지 벤조 먹고 있어야래. 네 소소 지 대사 강바도 야고 지원하래. 아니 지 잘라 돌로 이다 디 망고지 되었어야 돼. 덴전나라다 되어요라. 되어디 되어디 슈침부 차원디 네 덴절레 저와. 예, 미신다지라 덴데자라 덴데시도 나라 덴데 고도스로 데 되발레 차로 아게 조보다 지지지라 니니니도 나라 덴데 고도스 아니 되바디 가즈 슈침불레 저기 담는 거나도 담불이 나라다 아디다 미 투무 마이베 동에레다데 되베 뭐 전에 미니가 동사데 밀레야 하장하게 슈치슈게 동에 낭매숑네 되베 뭐 전에 미니베 동에라데 되바 슈치라고 온거 안디다 지강에다 장모용데데 디네 되바 슈치라고 온 거랬다 되바 좀 조사데 삼바 아 나도 망보지게 치치고로 치치 tunje 치기 tunje 직다 수 치고보 뭐게 내다 직다 직 벤조레 담닌다레 롱조레 아니 지 콜망부차레 딱게라 침부차레 아다딘데게 네 망보지게 네 사자 치료 파주 다른 뭐 사자 다른 것도나 유고들의 뭐도나 아니 사자 제고자래 망보지 도보 제고자래 망보지 강바 제고자래 그래서 같이 자고하려나 다 단다디 기우면도시 디가 되기 되면도 나 신다지요나 사와지요나 나 디기 데스레 텐제 디에다 데베지스 데발라 데와슈 전부도 그래서 상마 데베지스 도와서 디게 되네다 안서 디온디기요 레스로
So there is something about these, intentions that are fueled by aversion, but also there is desire that we desire things, and this is obvious. Desire as a kind of support, because oftentimes behind one's desires is this notion that one wants to be happy, one wants to have well-being, so self-cherishing is behind it. But oftentimes there's this notion that, if only I got something or somewhere, I'd be happy. And 90%, 100%, most of us follow these kind of disturbing thought obscurations of desire. And because desire is related in that sense to things in the external environment, this happens a lot for us, that we concentrate on wealth, a nice place, good clothes, things. And because the desirous attachment for those things is strong, competition comes, meaning like, if the neighbor's got something you see and then, I've got to get it, 1, 2, 3. So there's this competition, and then the desirous attachment becomes big. And in the world, we see this is really the way that humans function, and this is one of the kind of sufferings of the human condition, not getting what you want. Yes, so striving after something but not getting what you want, and this is the result of a lot of sufferings and problems. And it's a mind of desire that's born of outer things, such as forms, wealth, fame, having a good retinue, and so forth. And in dependence on that, people think that if only I go to another place, I'll be happy, or if I have new friends, I'll be happy, or, always changing one's place or job, I'll be happy. And all of these result from this following desire.
그래서 뭐라도 딩저게 다다 총바대저게 아니 미기 되베 제스 두고요 디 태어나 신기하러 봐.
Mm-hmm.
되베 침무지 왜인자 안텔레데네 베나 먼저 둘로 손이로 되나 아니 미드즈 속다 가와 가와치기 유메 봐. 아니 수지 가와 가와치기 유메 아니 어딜레데네 둘로 담아서 소제 총간도 하다 언도 되바 전부 써야게 다 딜베 아니 마짜는 셀단으로 야자주 자자주자듯이 뉴시 아주 망고 자빈다 가시게 뉴시스 아도서 데려와 가서 트릭도 와봐 아니 납주자시도 오다 아니 가시 주주자에서는 다다 비리도 인설이 된세 근데 그래서 이 잘라디 지 연애 양자 요거야로 가지고 통로도 돼서 여셔가라
Mm.
알아서는 먼저 대 정보대 비즈니스 미디어 사이콜로지 따지시고 미싱관계 되바디 가르치는 도구에 메디 제네네 지고요. 근데 칼라 선녀도 이나 지 칼라디 네 수불 핑계여 왔다. 아니 디 캄보차게여 왔다. 하러
Mm.
다 근데 라샤데 다 미디어 직 녀셔데 양서 직 녀셔 거라다. 그래서 늦은 상황 그 청구돼서 하고 뭐라고 먼저 대외제대로 해야 돼. 이 먼저 세월에다 당고 돼서 라트나 아니 하고요 그래서
So one thing we can clearly see is the people that are in business and go for profit. That's a clear illustration of following desire, because those business people will often make clothes, for example, they'll study what shapes are in fashion, what colors, and then when you go to buy them, there's all kinds of markdown discounts, 20, 30, 50, 60%, you're almost getting it free. So you might have bought one already, but you think you need another one. And this is because of the psychology that these business people study, and they know how to kind of work on your whims or desires. And then also with foods, isn't it? Diet. People think, there's this notion, oh, I need to be slim. So people make all these products, and then you feel you must buy it. So this is a clear example of how these kind of desirous thoughts work in business.
제단다 남배슈네 아니 셰븐데 아니 맞아 심레야다 subju 자야소래 그래서 디에 탐람디 베나만도 대화침보게 아니 년볼라 요즘 초시 된 거였어 봐. 저도 요즘 초시 된제 아니 대화침보 초시요. 나 대화침보 라야 디 제가 말아서 베나 디아보다 오늘 지나와 탐라 만두콩라 아 수수 잘라 가리면 수하고 오라라 아래 아니 이게 수수 잘라 가리면 하고도 통나다 제 가서 그래 이제 수수 가와에 잘라러 오시러 pen pecha시나 마이는다 나도 가와에나다 지난 뉴스 게임도 한국어로 다 우수도 괜찮으면서 뉴스 게임도 알아 다 한국어로 지내는데 한국 내 나오도 디틱스스나 나오도 수시다 서브다스 나오도 engela ro die ma konja ja na da me lam sa chom ra nya ga ra ro da ngal hanggo ge de yin le sha la de hanggo de ma thang la ja de ro da tang le ko min de ro ani ko da yo de ngil de ba tang mo so do adi ko min do se ani ko hanggo su su ga de yo de yo na yang ja thö ma ji ko ya ge min do ro 이 학생을 만나면 네 하고学习的 띵아 왜 가오도서 남자 뉴에서 예 한국 뭐 쉬 차로더라 그래서 디나시 버스지 가서 그래 수수 여지이나 니버 숨바 고야 캠도라
Yeah.
이게 계주제디 둘러서야 돼 뭐도 수부터야지 나로야 아니 칼라리 그이네 그 디자인은 니만 숨시 둔다지 그 쇼핑도 세션은 되게 되기도 알아. 가서나 서버라야 라네 바과디 직사리도서 디자인 게또 컬러도 또 녀자도 자비나고 그래서 도서관체 수불에 편바체 내가 용어체 그래서 그거 지 가서 그래 요즘 초시에서야 방부지 이제 대거요 망부지가 이 그로티로다 망백이 요즘 초시 치고서 지금 mellanasi 리가나야 다 개개명하고 그래 근데 말아 쌤게 되버지가 당연도 되베로 사지로 되베로 디 뉴르타미나 아니 디질라데 지금 제스토니 우마레스타 와 디지사데 지금은 테스트다 라레기오레 와 내가 그 디지라고다 먼저 류게 대다다 심감 틱틱틱다 고 야자 마로이나 네 야자가에 되고 말이지 칠로네 야자가에 되어서 말해요 칠로 그 튼지네 야자가에 되어도 말도 사실 야자가 좀 어지레라 거다 ngabji chilo la rale go ngabji nalo la mai na ta jaja nga de station research sa che ade mi su su sam dan da ro ta se ta deve dumba de sim na la chi gyor je ro na sim sam dan da je ni gyor dang de ane de ga ne ne sam mu sta de na sim ge de ji de gyor nga yo ta kan da ro gyor nga yo re temba yo re 아니 치 튼지 나가 생 디지 두알 치 튼지 뭐뭐 거야스게 요 말에 지라다 되고래요 그래서 디인데 한번도 디지 요야게 탐람 고선 담모로 주주시오 담모 아니 시오시오지 아지 차시 디시오지 뭐 단단하고 상담돼 이거 또 단단단다 상담 이거 단단 그 두에 이거 그 근데게 탐람지 여대라는 거 남산지로 도와 이 단단 가지고 상담이나 아니 에 문에 수수 치료 내가 저거 자고 말에 방법에 저거 자고 말에 로 저거 자고 말에 그거에 저거 자고 말에 내 칼라에 저거 자고 말에 가서라 먼저 내게 면직 써봐 면직이 내 잘라야 네 패야 내게 면직 써 내게 면직에 가서나 쌤 주었다 그래서 쌤 안에 뒤에 두게 데이터 하루 내디 가도래 그런들로 봐 가도래다 먼저 빌링 시합이 주시려고 쌤 나노니 뒤에 두야가 되던 쪽으로 되바 조사디 치료를 가지고 있어 나는 투주고 카드 줄내와 카드 줄고 있어 카드 줄시하나 아니 시다 딱 되오래와 딱 되고 시다래 시다기 지 가서 그래 심볼 십지로 왔다 간다 인지께도 맞으면 아니 그거 제가 또 대표주체 대van 상당이나 저런도 다디 아우도다 디 다다레샤스 야외여레스 나로 튜줄고 레스 카드라
So I'd like to share advice around changing the attitude from these outer things to these inner things. In a sense, it's really quite simple. From the perspective of Buddha Dharma, the whole point is to subdue your mind, transform your mind. And for us who have a lot of these desires and wantings, it's important to cultivate a sense of contentment. This means to have less wants. Like before one goes to the market to check, is it really necessary? And do you know what you have already? So for example, for us monks, we don't need much, maybe some shoes or a hat. But if I really think about the shoes I already have before I go to market, I won't need to think when I see them, I better get those shoes. So maybe I'll just be content and clean the old ones. Because if you don't check that type of motivation before you go to market, then you just find yourself buying the things and they kind of pile up. And when you understand that you already have something, then you reflect that I really don't need 2, 3, 4. So, and clothes, we can just have to clothe the body keep clean. And then with food, of course, we might shop every 3 or 4 days or so to get fresh provisions and what is in season and what benefits the body. And having less wants doesn't mean a kind of denial that you become like a beggar or like Milarepa living in a cave like that. What it really is a mental attitude that reduces the longing desire for things. And by this we mean, not following, thinking that those outer things will fulfill your happiness. For me, I think they're probably 5%. We need a degree of external things. A little bit of happiness can come from that. Some people say it's 50-50. So we should rely 50% on external things, 50% on your mind. This is really up to you and what you conclude. But what's being said is departumpa, which means when the kind of desirous longings and thoughts come in the mind, to be able to observe. And in that sense, then what we come to see is that the inner level of bliss and happiness is longer lasting and it's more stable. And to cultivate this type of lasting inner bliss, you don't need to wait. You don't need to expend lots of money. You can do it right now. And these are the practices in the Buddha Dharma path. And if you have that sense of observing, then in terms of your work, your house, your clothes, you won't feel it necessary to change them all the time. It is said in Buddha Dharma that just as there's one medicine that cures all ills, it is the same with this subduing of your mind. If you can cultivate your mind, transform, subdue it, then you accomplish that permanent well-being that we're talking about. So really, this well-being is an inner thing. It doesn't come from depending on external things. So one changes one's mental attitude, and it's quite simple to do. And if you really can conclude and work on it, then you might conclude, oh, that was just so obvious.
그래서 아까 이 신내기 유나네 예 데발라서 남도 인치가
No.
어디가 데발라서 남도 인치가 다지 남도 데가 데가 가서 데가 전부 전지 남도 먹게 와 잘라지지 거니 뭐지 그 남도 먹게 때문에 도요 와 대단하다 이 데데 남도 시야에 남도 시야가 시야나 소바다 개체주의 네 그래서 한번 시야를 네 템투가 시야에 심이 누가 봐 아그 누가만 냠대로 하셔야지 저 중주강에 비자든지 심리가 냠대로 심리가 요소도 근데 today Lunata can shoot same thing to Hora. In day, same number share, same thing to today. Chamada Govati war the word that is never Kamanova. And let you Chamada Govan in Porta. Hajan taught her the Lola Juchet our looking of our water. Young Hajan bet my same bed in the Yamde. 민도 기자 신임 마드니 하나 신임 마드니 내가 신임 마드니 아니 이무가 나다는데 근데 그러니까 그 지고 아베나가 되는데 이무도 근데 하둘라 계시주데 단단 내재민직스야지 근데야 담나나 장주생 공부 따라와 뭐라도 준비 장주생 공부이나 아니 직셈 시와에 되는 남도의 노아네 뭐서 네, 대전 위아도 랑게 텐데 미션게 텐데 이거. 아니 제가 지 소소게 대전 위아데 랑진지 그거 또 많이 받지. 때문에서 이 신진지가 네 여러 신지어진 생각을 내 소리나 아니 신변이 자원라데 숙청부 가도에나 셈라 바나다 떠나는 거와 뒤에나 셈이와 누가 매베서래 셈 바숑 되면서래 여기 공부 쉬거나 신기 셈 누가 냠베 쳐지게 야 누가 때 숙청부 차고 너도 전부 차는 거라 그러나 다 신변 chanju 셈 다데 하자기 야청보다 띵서 시기요래 당당한도 고두사지 해제주지 먼저 현재 담제 예림 당용 물러지세 근데 고두세 당용 물러지게 뭐요래 당용으로 계스나나 아니 신도 나는 타고야 되는데 담제 나는 그 리처 임바타 지금 캠바타 진소다 아주 상마 당고라 아데도 예 근데 뭐 저도 뭔가 싫다래 해주실 때마다 찍도 암조를 코다 말은 나는다고 봐 아니 나는다기나 찍도 누구예요 봐 이따가 바로 퍼블릭 토크인데 말하다 보는데 시스템 나와야지 초기에 지금 시고 내로 알아서 특징이 지내 마신 바이나 그래서 김산나가 라멘더기나 늘 누가 통보라 제가 먼저 단다 랭귀지라야 다이 데드 랭귀지 라고도 한번 남배 타만디 타만 시사교는 말에 대조 연결들이도 그거는 대조 여타죠 근데 따라가 대조 여되어 인자 대조 따마다 수술하는 거라 어쨌든 대조 땅이나 야자 야편도요 따라가 제가 대조 땅단디 타만 땅 멘더 미스스 칸다 너가 땅 배나 얘기해 주셔야지 말을 핑계는 저랑도 핑계 겨야 말다 저랑 수술이야 상무신다는데 단지 용식이래 그다음 내 팬바디 같이 말하는 거 제가다 아무게 신이들은 뭐 아주 더하다 무슨 처음으로 나라야 저는 단계가 되는데 근데 무슨 신이 염려도 그다 말하는 바디 들린지 시기가 그래서 그래서 신변계로 말해거나 이제 담제라야 일이 차단게 당연되다 매나 매대에서 그거다 이런 공 통마라고 차고요 그래서
So it is for that reason that we try to cultivate shamatha, the calm abiding, or to pacify mental constructs. Primarily, there are these desirous thoughts or distractions where we keep thinking we need 1, 2, and 3, and it is in dependence on these mental constructs that we can't focus single-pointedly. There needs to be a method to pacify those discursive thoughts, mental constructs, particularly if it is a mind which gets irritated or perturbed. But also there are times, conversely, when the mind loses its potency and it's too too dull. You're too self-absorbed. So sometimes when you're young, there are traumas you experience. So as a result of that, the mind has no potency. So therefore, we can see that there are these two things that need to be pacified in terms of mental constructs. This kind of discursion on the one hand, where you're overly externally excited, and then thinking on the latter, where you're too in. You're too in, you're too heavy. You don't feel like talking to the people. You don't feel hungry. You have a dull mind. So we talked about the one cure for all ills. And really, that is bodhicitta, the concern for others' welfare just by having that altruism. The mind is peaceful and there's less discursive thought because you're thinking not about yourself, but that you will accomplish and practice these things for others. So what we find is that if we have a mind that has this concern for others' welfare, the bodhicitta, then there's just such a joy and courage and potency in the mind. And oftentimes we get down and out, and that's a sign that the potency of our mind has degenerated. But we need courage, we need to lift that up. And this subject, bodhicitta, is a vast subject, this altruistic subject, bodhicitta, that we have this attitude. Before we cultivate this bodhicitta uncontrived, we need equanimity, neutrality. We need equanimity to generate the sense of equanimity to those beings directly around you before you can go into recognizing them as being kind, recalling that kindness and the sense of repaying it. And this is something that is important, that is not just in words, but we actually practice. Because if we practice these words, then the words have potency. It's not just like a public talk. It is that we should put it into practice, and then the words have a kind of taste or value for us. This kind of effect. We don't want to talk about it being a kind of a dead language, isn't it? Even in the context of Buddha Dharma, it is still alive. And if we practice 100%, then there is a method. So I'm only, and also what benefits me may not necessarily benefit for you, but I'm just sharing through my experience of having studied in this life of how to correctly devote to the spiritual friend and try and incorporate some of these things. But anyway, before cultivating this bodhicitta, at least try and cultivate equanimity to other.
I have quite often people ask question. Most people, young people, ask me more question because I learned this Buddhist topic, Buddhist philosophy, psychology, from Buddhist Buddha Shakyamuni and 2600 years now. It's very old, very 2000 years, very old. Now it's the 21st century, and they said this, how can matching this old methods is now? I think that we were thinking, a lot of people were thinking, this reason no benefit because it's the old method. This old fashion, we need new fashion. And this reason, and a lot of people follow how should chanting, singing. They think looks like fashion, I think a lot of people have followed like that. And for me, thinking Buddhist method is become more modern because 2,600 years ago, people monk, and for example, intuition, attachment, jealousy, environmental problems, and now people's mental problems. For example, stress or angry or jealousy or exactly the same, no different. No different. Exactly the same. This reason become more modern. But a lot of people don't understand the situation. 세상에서 로종이 고도 반대 주제라 편도 철철도 오르면 이게 주제야 요 말했어.
No. The topic of mind training mind transformation in this time has become even more powerful as the time gets degenerate.
Also, I think situation different. I was monastery started better. I don't recognize it so powerful like this because monastery, most monks, their mind is healthy and they're happy and they never seen the people. But there are some people monks who have some mental problem. I never ever have met this some that I was there. And then just we learning more, focusing the meanings and the debates and topics were profound, and then I'm so go to into memoirs, they call it, and just enjoy, happy, And then I don't realize recognize this how powerful, especially mind training practice. And sometimes I come here and I think, oh, this is very powerful, very useful, and some simple things, some words, Buddhist was learning this. It was mind training. I reading most every day in monastery. And then that I talk here a lot. I think it took Sunday class maybe 3-4 times. They turn this again. But this vocabulary or words message is very useful. And today I'm telling this most come from it was mind training. In any kind of situation, when you have some problem, I give some advice, this advanced mind training, some method. And then there are some people using and they benefit their life. And therefore, I really appreciate seeing more of these as a powerful these mind trainings. And same they come here are more but they recognize, right?
No.
And they recognize or rejoicing or that kind of tabu. No, that's more.
No. Yeah, it's like an extremely precious jewel has been uncovered. This mind training.
And
No, and meeting such a method under such conditions, we should rejoice that we've met it.
Someone done that in Deji, and a champagne to load the tongue by Yina, around the Shen, they were not sure of some of the other shed. Lulu, same dinner, Lulu, or not some of Lulu to den or that, she would go. Same the woman, actually, the session, she would do a
And, it gives one tremendous courage to practice. And then the mind, in terms of its intentions, starts to go down a valid path or a good path. Because if you are concerned for others, you are wishing them well. And if a mind is well, the body is well. If the mind is not well, no matter how beautiful externally, might not get happy.
Oh, that did Nalo Gomjala, Tango, Tikusen, that's not Manja Sanimal, Pomchi, sharing the Pomji, the Javas Rata. The Pom Javna, and Nedu Manguchi, shame, or a penna, and then I'll take the Poson Apena. Dube do Shadan do Teresia Lagayu, and take the Tapotara. That won't get you. And the latter and what Suzuki Numajiganagi Diduti. Kazu Shadan chose Dona, Dunyamaya. Kazu Beji Shimbing chose Doina Suzukiwa. Sim Giver, Lugiwa, Suzukiwa, the Midi Giver. Tara the latter and what oh, that is a good new chamberisha. And any shade for the Gomja de la Nueva. Gomja the Pendoyo or Gomja the Gogocho Imba. And it did the latter and the to the Rawat Gomja on England. Gomja the Kundicha Nana, Dixata. Like using all the magic to take that. Number retirement chair. Number my sister was retired chair, one my sister was Gabota. So she did do Gomjam, she was that and that. She did do Gomjam, she's done that.
So, you know, a lot of you are familiar with these steps we go through, those who come regularly on Sunday in terms of meditation. And just by, following these simple slogans or steps, you can come to know a lot. That you're aware when your thoughts are having like an aversion, and you can introduce that throughout the course of your day, that you're observing that when you're acting out of thoughts of aversion, the day has more difficulties and sufferings. But if you're acting out of thoughts to help others, beneficial intention, self and others, you're much happier. And one can also begin to recognize what are the benefits of such uncontrived altruism, the great purpose. And once you start to yearn to meditate, you like to meditate, that's a good sign. One's striving to meditate. As I mentioned the other day, someone talked about retirement. In Buddha Dharma, there's no retirement, but it's a good sign if you're meditating at death. That's a good sign.
And to them there.
Yeah, and then you might go into absorption, the clear light death meditation. And then if you are with that method this life, then future life is good, by the way. It is good. So on that note, let's meditate together.
Tanda Chanchu Senbei Jimbala, Lenero, Namilero, Jimba Dang, Ni Chikoji Chilaro Dang, Ni Chika, Longju Chimbo, Chan, the Damida, after the legs, and Paji General Studio and Romeo. Nami said, Jimba Dang, then Lu Kuzum Tower, Lu Zero, Longju Chimbo, and they gave Romeo. Senbei Jibata, so that around the church, Shena Pendoche, Jibanian, they were true Jimbarwa, Tabejin was a Russian, then the Logan, Tabejin Barwa. So that Jibati in young Nandita, that the Pento of Honasia, Bashi, Pento of Hona, and his arm was a Pento of the Gerda or the Shena from Waya, the Tigio, that has using around the Tiling Negotiation. Lumagi Chawa Kanchewa, the Tabodi, the Dawson.
So we meditate and we cultivate the thought that may the actions of one's body and speech solely benefit others, only help them, those beings directly around you. Here, solely helping others, no hope or agenda of getting something back. The bodhisattvas, when they engage in generosity, have no expectation of even being thanked for something or getting fame, but also they're also not attached to the fully ripened result. And the fully ripened result of generosity is having an attractive appearance and having provisions to use or wealth. But when we're really practicing generosity, we are practicing the love, because it is, generosity of altruism. So therefore, if one has the thought to solely benefit others, then you are going to collect roots of virtue like that by means of your body and speech to benefit them.
Oh yeah, that's all. I'm going to use that. And then get some kids easy to each one. Yeah, that's all I'm sure that will be. I'm cool up, give us some machine and go on with it. 나도 수술라 연대 망고지 열 때래가 수술 뭐
Ramacha, yeah.
그래서 뭐 편은 말하나 연대 레스도 다 가고 보면 디케 좀 버렸다. 랑 연대라 가고 보면 디케 좀 찾고라.
Now one can rejoice that one has generated the bodhicitta, the concern for others' welfare. Just that is a lot of merit. And it's important to recognize that often you don't even see the qualities you have yourself. So that's important to recognize you have that quality and rejoice.
Oh yeah, I'm good. I'm going to the yeah, no, we need to move down. The Subunia down hard, do you share a check? How about the net, the lunch in that kick down down at the other, you know? It's a year cushion solution there. No, the Lama Patch of water, the bling, you know, non being on the session. A Java machine, our jealous of Kumo is or they pay you, Lama Patch of Mambo. Then now you know, the soon get target luck in the day there. But this is the loan and the can be and so watching some days or the world winner near the year to ship a yas. Same game on that or I might give us the low car ship a yas. And the Upa down the weekend, the route and kind of had turns on chair. But there's a date from this area as well.
No. Breathing awareness. We're going to focus on long breaths, inhalations, exhalations, going into the nostrils, and being aware, where does the air go in the body? Just being aware of that. And on the in-breath, this place we're in has tremendous blessings. The blessings of the body, speech, and mind of the enlightened ones. Many great lamas have been here from the point of view of Buddha Dharma. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who's the embodiment of the Buddha's compassion, Avalokiteshvara, has taught here. Many other highly realized beings have taught here, the sound of which carries a form and a wave of blessing. So when you, in dependence on breathing in, any tightness physically, and any mental construct and worries, on the out breath, the faults of which are pacified.
that then it dog and no Tangaja Javos rather Chandaman Chadijin Sa Nima Daniel Mambole Sharani or the Terry Tanga Dinia Susu Kadu Jatu the Jamel Tangi Daji Tatalisa Nea Tamja Timaresawa and how many to Jafu Asra.
So now we're going to make the breath a little bit shorter or shallow, quicker. And this is to count cycles of the breath. Most of you are familiar with having done this on previous Sundays. So as you can, do your best to count to 21 cycles.
No. And Tangaja, the Sum the Anatana, the Sum the Gana Satona, Tagati Yore, and other now Shergare, the Latonach you or nowadays now you shall, Namita shall.
So essentially, one is aware of inhalation, exhalation, and that's your focal object. That's the main point. That these thoughts and appearances will fleet through, no problem.
Oh yeah, that time I don't understand. And you know the one guy in Haja Tamsha, send the Tadian, but you never then Shiva, Kama, and Kobe symbol. Today, we are from the when you start to put a wish having for the thing that you're done, they will, right? And you're this young land, Pajega, and then you will something like our channel, yeah, come start the Rigon Mara. This is the young diamond in Murray. Although the similar make be near like the similar make be near the wall, was symphony in worse on Mara. Same words on a Talan Yashiji. Or the Ujo Tagaja. And it can cover Devina, the same words on Yadi. Tapte oyun muyor var. Çezen değil bir sim tadawa di bana şa. Je şu asra.
No. Leaving aside counting cycles now, most of you are familiar with when you stop counting cycles, you just aware of your mind's pacification, its clarity, its quiet. That will happen even in the context of doing 21 cycles of breath in a quality way. Experiences will come for the meditator, but it's important not to try and contrive that, to have too much hope around that. The point of calm abiding is to utilize and focus one's mind. And one of the best methods for that control of mind or recognizing mind is breath. So therefore, after that, if one can place the mind in the present moment, is useful. Rest.
Oh yeah, that 제공입니다. 다 제공도 가져오는 된. 되게 스스 상담단죠 봐. 이 컨테스트 지단에 영화. 예. 이제 스스 말한 상황을 디기다 야워지다. sempre 기부죠 하시지. 빨리 여보요. 근데 이 전환시대 이 디기다 주요 사태. 하나는 가리지가 않는 연구도 봐. 지금 뭐 아니 지금 뭐지다 치기 내단지가 다네 이게 왜 전화인 것도 되게 세서 상담다랑 통이 두고도 세는 것도 아무 팀이 수수면 내 다단 할도 팀원 심죠 어디 제공 디테일스 잡혀서
Now to do some analytical or reflective meditation check your normal way of thinking. How do you approach things? How do you think? I mean, of course, one is striving for happiness and well-being. We put effort into that. But how does one go about one's own well-being? Is it in dependence on outer things that you fulfill that? Or is it more your mental attitude? Just first recognizing between those two.
아야 다는 그 치기 튼이 그거요 봐 대세 강도 뭐요래 도세 모두 뭐요래 아니 또 유로 돌아보냐 그거래 칼라칼라세 뭐요래 되게 그거래요. 그거 되게 차단지 두유에 다들 대가는 상담이라면 그거 되게 유능한 되게 차단지 거래 참여라. 되게 가나 아주 단단하다. 상담단데 조정만에 갔다 놓다 되게 보고요. 딱 한다로 한이 많은 거지. 좀 된대 한이 많은 거지. 더
Mm-hmm.
제고요.
Mm-hmm.
예를 치터 라니 지구 돈다가 예를 치터 말인가. 예를 치터나 아니 와, 미가제기 쇼제지고라 로로동라 직근데서 와. 만들기 다워 투 로직 조선인데 쇼베기 쇼제 베르카지 못한 거라. 무슨 예를 봐. 디네 봐야게. 아니, 야 베디 마풍게로 칼라 링고로 네 칼라 또 대좀 보이가 근데 뭐는 소본 누구로 간다. 되게 많이 봐. 아가지 기대 보고에 탄니스가 나와. 탄니스가 나오는 거죠. 저는 전해대지 논의도 주제는 다다가 되고 소화제단지 당용 소화제단 신기 매우지 다다하고가
Mm-hmm.
알아서 류 내나도 뭐 그지 칼라서 나더니 못 알아. 칼라서 나게 네 정말이게 되네다. 류 내나도 맞아다. 세네로 레도 하고 사야지. 마모리 디만다. 마마 lo llamo Kema que never did the fire, Kema, taxi never said, how long you knew, that thing that Ginny never said, Yoma, do Ginny never have that thing that Hale, Hala said, they're gonna took that. And Sadan day to Sadan day Chinese very much. I can that. 좀 된데 이 탄이스 먹는 것에 그 특징되게 다양한 돌라도 옆에 가는데
Yes, there is a place to an extent for these outer things we need, a place to live, or a car to drive, clothes to wear, food to eat, of course. But then the question is, one has to ask, do those things really fulfill all of our needs in terms of our well-being? Yes, we need some of those things, but as Shakyamuni Buddha said, we need to dwell free from the two extremes. Extreme on the one hand of having too much that some people might make before breakfast $1,000 that would take you a month to make. There is that, isn't there? But on the other hand, on the other extreme, you don't want to put yourself down so that you are poor diet, not good conditions. And 2,600 years ago, this is what Buddha said, to stay in the middle way, free from the two extremes. In that context of cultivating a mind of equilibrium, Shakyamuni Buddha knew already. These days, a lot of people get sick because they don't know how to eat. The prevalence of sugar, there's a lot of diabetic problem, blood pressure problem. So just knowing that food can be the condition for us getting sick and the way we eat. So just that one piece of advice from Shakyamuni, stay in the middle, free from extremes.
I had one friend, I think this restaurant now close, the Manas, restaurant, I think close now. Yeah, he was chef, and he cooking breakfast for 3 people, and then they taking helicopter, and 3 people take on the mountain breakfast. Each person has 1,000 breakfast. It's crazy. I think some people.
I look at that a little bit strange, that wealth. Yeah, some people can't even, get food, and they're, like begging on the road. So one needs kind of a middle approach.
최제 저기 팀마스냐 최제 그 최제 의주 중요 팀 랜섬도 최제도 저기 찬양바 팀마스음스요 있어거라 그 예보도 들어봐 주보다 방금 매버서 팀마스음 제대로 주고 차진 빵빵 차는 릴라케가 뭐 재미게 저거 재미게 알레네 먼저 별로 팀마스음 되지 찬양스요를 다다야 주고 빵빵 차로 거스 Tadi sonam rawaji tevure de sonam misi sonam rawaji da lego da rawaji de sotoya midwa. Sosu soje dan ke chumbri da mi khalo jutu eyo ma berwa.
A lot of these differences people experience, those extremes of wealth or poverty, is merit of the individual. This we cannot change. Even the Tibetan kings tried to equalize society by making it less extreme, that the wealth had so much and the poor didn't have any. Three like Tibetan kings, and also the Chinese tried to make that socialize. But really, others, wealth or lack of, you can't really change. You can have ownership over your own.
아니 지금 한번 템포 샷이야 와 한번 템포 지샷인다 아니 계시주디 지 강요에 되게 체인도 서버 공략과 동행시라고 동행 당행 그 서버 공략 다들 촉시에요 다 촉시에 뭐 계정 뭐와 촉시에도 요나 교용 그래 봐 단단한도 뭔지 교면 돼 되버치면 안 돼다 뭐 지금 맞죠 해야 돼 되버치면 정대 봐 사실 촉시에 냐면 제다
No. So due to that analytical meditation, it is a mind that undergoes change in terms of well-being, cultivating a kind heart. So firstly, cultivating altruism towards other, kind heart. Secondly, is what's important is that your mind is stable. But thirdly, that you can bear difficulties, patience in the face of suffering. And in this context, contentment plays a big part. If you are happy with what you have and satiated, then you won't always be thinking, I need this, this, and this.
I think we stop here, and if some people have question next time, you can let me know as well.
No.
And send some message. We have 2 more weeks. So
No, Sunday neither.
Yeah, sure you know. Sure they ya we sewo the komja do the part do the nyamyo do na. Ide ya ko cheche ro tende ta pogwa tende ya tende you na de message sha na we ore so na de chilo do ni ka she yo ro ganan do
We have 2 Sundays remaining, so it's good if you want to. You can leave your questions or share your experiences and doubts. Leave a message, and we'll try to address them. I know there are some people listening online, so you're welcome to leave a message there too.
Oh yeah, that quando lascio bene con gli altri tringo sempre va. Mi me con la da 요즘 초시다 스웨덴다 신민기다 하이라이기가 있다리아도 이만이면은 바렌다야데 본다니가 되나 아니 자지 체제다 수술내가 먼저 가르가체 이제 초샤체 이제 미신인데 동생 제와 이만직도 당마스잖아 니야고요와 이만직직 당마스도 나야고요레스 그래서 다바체 안데네 다스도 내가 지금 본자를 내가 쉐어를 준비 중에는 내가 가고 나 수수시다 지야 오늘 신당은 신변 글로사데 왕라도 계획자와 사셔야돼 때문에 신기 생제든지 지경을 신모시는 하나 신배로 와 나라도 갈아서야돼 두번나 루만 외로 그걸 집었다 하나 신바로 와 이제 그 신변 신다 되면 저기 내가 지에 매는 거지 오늘 신은 한번 하고 싶다 이제 그 신변이 차와 쳐가지고 나오고 와 근데 뭐였습니다 지금 팬 정도다 되려 팬바데 예 고민 통화에 이제 누구들 차이를 쓰죠 민 통화면 저기 원래 저는 민 통화면 저기 저는 그 숙차야 와 아직 연맹이 샘디 깨직직 기회이나 쇼선한 처음으로 제가 이제 이렇게 와라 보면 알아봐듯이 예를 미리서 개와 친구들이나 연대나 가보면 제대로나 지야도 대점으로 이제 내가 신기 개와 사셔부터 담지 뭐면은 야고시 정도 동화가는 뭐에 똑새와 이 편지가 나라 사단 로고라도 템베도 미국은 제가 마음속에 있는 그 개와 제 신진치 인상 다른 개와 아니네 양지되는 컨디션 추진의 제가 대 년제 당당해요 봐. 이 컨디와 컨베터와 아니 다 되게 나는 본게야
Around Chinese.
근데 지금은 되는 왜 지금도 사는 테마에 되는 미션을 펜더치 두고 상담 아니 세진이 들어와 근데 담아대 뭐하시는 나 또 맞춰서 누구도 하게 근데 이게 인샤지만 자야를 나오지만 자야를 또 그냥 이제 가장 게 랍션보다 칭찬보다 노션보다 생각도 우리는 다음에 지들이나 한 대가 나다 그냥 또 상마하고 다음에 이제 한지 관계 실 한지 대돈 그마다 봐 대대 상담 좀 하려고 아마 나네 좀 말해 밀람다에 그마다에 매지 밀람다 이제 세우죠 항상에도 들어 어두시에 뭐 그런 지내냐고 그래서
And in the context of today, we already did in the context of a daily practice, we already did the motivation that we, had a beneficial intention, and then independent on that motivation, during the context of the day, we do our best to be patient when difficulties come, to have concern for others. And then in the evening, before we sleep, we recognize any mistakes we've made, we regret and confess them. And this is a very good way to kind of clean day by day. It's also good to rejoice in those around you, and then to dedicate the roots of virtue. If you can just dedicate or pray for others, then that is the bodhicitta as well, isn't it? That is the practice of altruism, concern for other. When we eat, we can practice giving by offering charity to the beings in our bodies. In short, no action we do excludes other. Therefore, no action we do is without beneficial intent, concern for their welfare. Of course, those that we see directly, it has more potency. But if you can generate that bodhicitta just for one instant, including all beings, then it has a tremendous courage, potency. Next, to those that are around you, directly those that you see, it's good to recognize they have good qualities. And all of this practice, recognizing others' virtues as well, and then dedicating merits for them, all of these are subsumed within the 5 powers just in one session. Firstly, first power that we cultivated concern for others' welfare, this beneficial intention. Secondly, that intention itself is virtuous, the power of the white seed. Thirdly, we're going to cultivate that thought again and again, power of habituation. Fourthly, that we want to make sure that our thoughts are not overcome with self-cherishing. So our bodhicitta is not sullied. This is the power of repudiation, reminding ourselves we're doing this for them. And then finally, fifth power to dedicate. So just in one session, in one day, in 1 month, those 5 powers are sustained. They're very deep and they carry lots of waves of blessings. I think that's useful, but it's also important to think that all phenomena have an illusory-like quality. They're empty and void of intrinsic nature. They don't exist the way they appear. Think of one's life as similar to a dream, and then there's nothing to be too particularly upset about. So then those roots of virtue that we have from coming together, my saying something, you listening, us meditating, those roots of virtue we dedicate in prayer. Prayer does have a potency that, and we dedicate these roots of virtue in the session to the world peace, that there's no problem with the 4 elements in the world, with the elemental disturbances, but mostly the beings that dwell in the world, humans and animals, don't have difficulties with wanting for things to eat or shelter or employment or getting the medicines they need. Most importantly, may beings cultivate in their minds the bodhicitta. If they were able to do that, cultivate that altruism, world peace would be there. However, for that to come about, you have to cultivate it in your own mind first. And such a cultivation of uncontrived altruism doesn't come about just by praying. We have to do it practically. So that beneficial intention, if just one person cultivates that, spontaneous, then two, then three, then it can spread to hundreds and thousands of people. This is going to come about not just by praying, although praying does have a potency. And if such an attitude of bodhicitta altruism was born in the minds of the politicians and leaders, that would have a tremendous effect, because these are the ones who have the influence to influence things in the world. And as we mentioned, often we're under the control of self-interest, of unawareness or ignorance. And as was mentioned earlier, most people, they're just following either thoughts of aversion or thoughts of desire. But if people were generated genuine altruism, that would be no more. So I dedicate to that end, and please dedicate likewise. Deuce. There's a short announcement. Don't leave.
No. I'm just letting everybody know we have 2 summer retreats, one starting on the 9th of January and the second starting on the 30th of January. So please come. And it will be available online for people joining online, or you can come and stay at the centre. And yeah, it's open to all experienced practitioners. So please have a look at the website for more information, or email meditate@chandrakirti.com.au for more information. Okay, thank you. Yeah.